Welcome back to Grounded Moments. This is your host, Brian James McMahon. I really believe that we are at our best when we're grounded, when we are settled and we're secure in who we are, where we are, and what we're doing. Living, loving, and leading from groundedness takes a great deal of intentionality, effort, and creativity. And it takes time. That's what we do in each Grounded Moments episode. We take a few minutes to slow down, a few minutes to be present with ourselves, to be present with a specific thought or an idea or an experience, and to give ourselves space to settle and to get our feet on the ground. Because we know that when we are grounded, we live our best lives. When we are grounded, we are the most present leaders, the best parents, and just our best versions of our humanness. So we're in this kind of ongoing building conversation about pursuing wholeness, right? I think if you've been following along, you heard me last time talk about this journey towards wholeness where we're paying attention to the experience of being present, right? Being totally present and engaged in a moment, not that other moments don't exist, but that we're able to be really attentive to the moment we're in and hold those in connection with all of the other moments. And that the capacity and the ability to be fully present is a sign and reflective of being our whole selves. Right? I talked about how to be our whole selves, it requires both a stabilized sense of identity and a stabilized sense of safety, of being able to trust the world around us, right? I use the metaphor of walking down the stairs. And if I lose my balance, I reach out to grab a hold of something to stabilize me, which takes me out of attentiveness to the very moment that I'm in and where my foot is, right? I can't just look at my feet and just look ahead of me if I'm also trying to find something to stabilize me. And when our sense of identity is unsettled, or our sense of self, or our sense of safety is unsettled, those are moments that make it really impossible to be truly present in the moment and truly present with those around us, and the people that we're sitting with. And so as we're navigating through this, I'm breaking it apart a little bit. In these few minutes, I really want to talk about this idea of our sense of self, our sense of identity, right? And I've mentioned that our sense of identity really comes through experiences of being loved. And so I want you to think for a moment. I just want you to pull up into your mind a moment when you felt loved. Oftentimes I'll ask my clients the question of how did you know you were loved as a kid when you were growing up? What were the moments that come to your mind? Where you felt love, where you experienced love. And so I want to ask you that question. I want you to think of a moment, an experience you had where you just felt loved, right? And when we think of these moments, what we'll find is moments where we are loved communicate really kind of four particular things. I think there's probably a lot of different ways of pulling it apart and looking at it, but there's four particular things I want to draw our attention to. One is they communicate belonging, right? When I'm being loved, when you're being loved, the person who's loving us, these moments that we're being loved, says, you belong here. You belong in this relationship. You belong in this moment. You belong here with me. The second thing it says is you have value. You bring value. I want to spend time with you. You have some sort of worth that is within you that is worth me being present with you. Right? It communicates a sense of uniqueness that I don't want to be with anyone else. I want to be with you, that you are unique, you are special, right? There's something that is particular to who you are that makes me want to be with you. And in all of that, this fourth thing that almost to me undergirds all of it is the experience of being seen, right? We belong, we have value, we hold a uniqueness, and we are seen in it and for it. And in being seen, in these ways, we actually develop a sense of identity. I think about a moment I think I was in middle school, and I was really into running at the time, and I was training for a 5K race, and we had a track that wasn't too far from my house that I would go run on. And I remember this one particular day that my dad came and joined me on my run, and this was particularly significant because my dad had polio when he was a kid, and he has never been able to run. And he said he wanted to come join me, knowing that he couldn't run. It was a bit uncertain about what it would look. And what ended up happening was he got on his bicycle, and he came and he rode his bike with me as I ran around the track lap after lap after lap. And when I think about moments where I just know that I'm loved, that's a moment that I come back to over and over again, that this is a moment where my dad communicated to me, hey, you belong with me. I want to be with you, right? You have value, enough value. I want to show up with you to do something that maybe even makes me uncomfortable, but you have value and you're unique. I want to be with you. I don't want to spend this moment with anybody else. What it is that you are doing right now matters. There's a uniqueness to that. And I felt seen. I felt like the things that mattered to me were seen and valued by my dad. I felt like who I was and what was within me and the effort I was putting in was recognized and joined in this experience of being loved. So I want you to think about that and what those moments feel like for you, right? When you're loved, when you have a moment where your sense of identity gets consolidated into this experience of going, I am loved. I do have value. I'm seen. I belong. I don't have to be like anyone else. I am unique and there's value in me being me. And so I want you to think about that moment. And I also want you to hold up in your mind next to it a moment that actually where you weren't sure you were loved, right? Maybe it's from the very same person. Some of us grow up in families where sometimes we feel loved and sometimes we don't. Some of us have more of these experiences where we're just not sure. Do you love me? Are you using me? Do you want to be with me? Is there an angle and there's kind of confusion? Do I really hold value? One of the experiences that I had a lot of growing up, I grew up in Southeast Asia, and it was in a city where there weren't a lot of American families. And with that came a lot of attention that a lot of people wanted to be associated or connected with the American family. It was just one of those things in the culture at the time that there was a disproportionate value to being a white American. Um, I think that we could extrapolate on that in a lot of different directions across many cultures and over time in many angles, but we will save that for a different podcast. But I had this experience of knowing that a lot of people wanted to be around me. But most of the time, it felt like they wanted to be around me because I was some sort of like novelty that they had never seen, or they wanted the exposure of being associated with something that they thought was of value. So it really was ended up being for them. And I remember having moment after moment in conversations about going like, I don't think you see me. Like you see this one thing about me, but you don't really see me. And instead of feeling special, I felt almost like minimized, that my specialness was only because I was an American. I wasn't actually special because I was me. I certainly didn't feel like I belonged. Like they wanted to be with me, but they wanted to be with me because I was different, because I was other, not because I belonged and had value with them. And that the uniqueness was like a strangeness. It wasn't a valued. And in all of these moments left me sitting going, I don't really know if you love me, if I'm loved. This is a strange, it was just an uncomfortable kind of experience that left me often quite uncertain. But where do I sit in this situation? Where do I fall? Am I cared about? What happens if things go bad? And you can kind of get a sense of that uncertainty. So I want you to think about a moment where you weren't sure if you were loved. And I want you to notice what happens in you and the way that imbalance causes you to almost like restrict or withdraw, or like we all respond in kind of different ways to moments when we're not sure if we feel loved. But however we respond, there's a sense of imbalance, right? There's a sense of not being settled. There's a sense of tension and tightness. And I just want you to notice that. Because for us to be whole, for us to be living in our best lives and out of our best selves, we're going to want to be attentive to the moments our sense of identity is destabilized, because that will pull us out of the moments we're in. If we feel like we have to go and stabilize our sense of identity, we're not going to be available to be present to the people we're sitting with and the people that we're attending to. So we just want to start by being attentive to the moments the imbalance comes up, so that we can find ways together to navigate through all of that. So as we pause here. We'll continue, and I'm going to pick up and we're going to talk specifically about our sense of safety and the implications for that and what that looks like. But I want you to think for a bit and sit for a bit, if you can, around this idea of your sense of self, your identity, and the way that your experiences of being loved or of not being loved really impact the wholeness of that and how stable that feels for you. So that we can move forward and really live, love, and lead whole and well. So be kind to yourselves, and we'll talk soon.